Your mix sounds good. Technically, everything is right. The levels are balanced. The EQ is clean. The compression is controlled. But when you compare it to a professional record, something's missing. Your mix sounds flat. Theirs sounds three-dimensional. Yours sounds clean and theirs sounds polished. That polish, that sheen, that feeling of everything being finished and ready for release isn't magic. It's not some secret mastering chain you haven't discovered, even though you might think it is. Some plugin companies even claim that their magical plugin will give you that polished sound if you purchase and use it. In studio after studio, that finished sound actually comes from one specific piece of gear that sits at the very end of the mix bus, a piece of gear that retails for nearly $7,000. Today, we're going to pull that curtain back. I'm going to show you exactly what this tool does to your audio, why the engineering behind it can't be replicated by a standard EQ, and how you can get that same expensive polish in your DAW. We're talking about the Manley Massive Passive. Hello, and welcome to Kenetic Sownd, where we embrace the idea that we don't start as professionals, but we can all become pros through practice and knowledge. I'm Ken, and today we're going deep on a plugin that has earned its place in the world's top mastering studios, the Universal Audio Manley Massive Passive EQ. Before we touch a single knob, I want you to understand where this EQ comes from, because the story behind the Massive Passive is inseparable from the sound it produces. The Manley brand was born in the late 1980s, started by Eve-Anna Manley and David Manley, the founder of Vacuum Tube Logic. David had founded VTL in England in the early 1980s before bringing the company to California to manufacture tube amplifiers and preamps. Their first pro audio products, the Enhanced Pultec EQ mid-frequency equalizers and the reference microphones, debuted at the 1990 AES show in Los Angeles. Then in 96, David Manley suddenly left both the company and the United States, leaving Eve-Anna in charge, and this turned out to be the most important moment in the company's history. Eve-Anna later admitted that the emotions from David's departure fueled an intense creative drive. She channeled that energy into making better products than David ever had. Under her leadership, Manley Labs entered what she calls the V2 phase, and over the next few years released a string of products that would become modern classics. The stereo variable mu limiter compressor in 94, the VoxBox reference channel strip in 97, and in 98, the product we're here to discuss, the Manley Massive Passive Stereo EQ. It's worth knowing a little about Eve-Anna's background. She holds a BA from Columbia University in New York with a minor in music. Her stepfather, Albert J. DeRay Jr., had acquired Ampeg in the late 1960s during the time the legendary SVT bass amplifier was developed and the Rolling Stones took the first prototype out on tour. She grew up a dedicated band geek, playing clarinet, saxophone, and trumpet. So when I tell you the Massive Passive was born from a musician's ear and a leader's determination, I mean that literally. The man who actually designed the Massive Passive is Craig Hutchinson, one of the most respected audio circuit designers in the world. Hutch started out as a front-of-house mix engineer for the Guess Who and Burton Cummings. He then transitioned from live sound into studio work, eventually becoming the chief engineer at Electric Lady Studios in New York, the legendary studio built by Jimi Hendrix. He also held positions at Focusrite, one of the most important outboard gear manufacturers in the world. At Electric Lady, he personally commissioned the original Focusrite Fort number 002. Hutch's connection with Manley began in the early 90s. He was first a Manley amplifier customer while he was chief tech at Electric Lady, and then became a Manley dealer when he started his own company, Uptime Audio. In 94, Manley Labs hired Hutch to rebuild a 1969 vintage Neve console. After completing that project, he relocated to Chino, California to work at Manley Labs full-time. By 96, Hutch took over as chief designer. To give you a sense of his caliber, after leaving Manley in 2008, Hutch joined Rupert Neve Designs, working directly under Rupert Neve himself. Neve said of Hutch, "For over the last 20 years, I've seen Hutch become one of the world's foremost audio circuit designers, and it is both a privilege and an honor to have him join our team." Hutch went on to design not only the Massive Passive, but also the Variable Mu, the Slam, and the Vox Box, and the Manley 16x2 mixers. Products that have collectively won over 15 tech awards with over 20 nominations. By the late 1990s, top studios wanted a new kind of EQ, more character, more dramatic tone shaping, less clinical. Manley had been making enhanced Pultec EQs since the early 1990s, but Ivana wanted to go further. As she put it, "We wanted to make this like a super Pultec. We used to say like a Pultec on steroids. More frequency choices, more bands, and even extra filters." She suggested Hutch work on a 2-parametric and gave him almost total creative freedom in the execution. The name, it came from a naming contest. Two people, Randy and Justin, independently came up with Massive Passive, and both won, applying their price credit towards buying the EQ they named. The assemblers on the factory floor gave it the nickname Massivo, from Massivo Passivo. What Hutch delivered was fundamentally different from anything else on the market. Let me explain the single most important thing about the Massive Passive, and it's right there in the name. The tone shaping section of this EQ uses absolutely no active circuitry, none. The entire EQ network is built from metal film resistors, film capacitors, and custom hand-wound inductors. That's it. No op amps, no transistors, no integrated circuits in the signal path. This is the same fundamental approach as the classic Pultec EQP1A, but was taken to an entirely new level of complexity and capability. Now, here's the trade-off. A passive EQ network can only attenuate a signal. It can't amplify it. So when you boost on a passive EQ, what's really happening is the EQ is attenuating everything else, and then a separate gain stage brings the overall level back up. That gain stage on the Massive Passive, it's 6 vacuum tubes, 3 per channel. This matters because the tubes aren't just compensating for lost level. They're adding their own harmonic character, even order harmonics, subtle warmth, a 3-dimensionality that active EQ designs simply don't produce. Here's where it really gets interesting. Most equalizers connect their bands in series. The signal passes through band 1, then band 2, then band 3, then band 4. Each band processes the output of the previous one. The Massive Passive does something fundamentally different. All 4 bands are routed in parallel. The signal is split, processed by each band simultaneously, and then recombined. This has profound implications. In a series EQ, if you boost 4 bands at 1 kilohertz by 20 dB each, you get plus 80 dB. In the Massive Passive, that same scenario gives you plus 20 dB, because the bands aren't stacking, they're blending. This parallel interaction is a huge part of why the Massive Passive sounds musical even when you push it hard. The bands influence each other in complex non-linear ways that create a sound you can't predict from the knob positions alone. As the manual says, taste rules Test bench don't make hit records. Believe your ears. On most parametric EQs, only the edge bands, the lowest and highest, offer a shelving option. The mid bands are always bells. On the massive passive, all four bands can switch between bell and shelf modes. This creates expanded possibilities, including what engineers call staircase EQ curves, where multiple shelves at different frequencies create a sculpted frequency response that's impossible to achieve on a conventional parametric. In shelf mode, the bandwidth control does something unexpected. Instead of simply widening the shelf transition, increasing the bandwidth introduces a bell-shaped dip in the opposite direction, a behavior borrowed from Pultec-like characteristics. Ivana described this directly. When you boost and cut at the same time, you get an extra little dip in the frequency. That's an aberration of an original Pultec EQ that we allowed that type of behavior to remain here. This overshoot is one of the reasons the massive passives shelves sound so open and dimensional. That opposite direction dip creates a contrast that makes the boost feel more present without actually adding more energy. The massive passive uses 6 vacuum tubes per unit, 3 per channel. The first tube handles the makeup gain after the passive network. The second is an interstage white cathode follower buffer. And the third is another white cathode follower at the output, which Ivana describes as being able to drive a truck. There are no negative feedback loops in the design. This is a deliberate choice that preserves the harmonic characteristics of the tubes and transformers rather than trading it for measured linearity. The level of craftsmanship inside the hardware is extraordinary. Inductors and output transformers wound in-house at Manley Labs Magnetics Department. Capacitors, WEMA film caps, and multi-cap audiophile grade capacitor switches, sealed gold contact gray hill switches, potentiometers, Bourne's 91 series conductive plastic pots fitted with O-rings on the knobs for precise feel. This is a hand-built instrument, and it retails for approximately $6,999, a price tag that has kept it out of the reach for most home studio owners, but one that professional mastering and mixing engineers consider fully justified. The Massive Passive's reputation isn't built on marketing. It's built on the engineers who refuse to work without one. Bob Ludwig at Gateway Mastering had 6 channels of Massive Passive EQs alongside his GML mastering EQs, using the GML for transparent precision work and the Manley for character. Bob's protege, Adam Ayan, who has contributed to 42 Grammy-winning albums, including work with Paul McCartney, Taylor Swift, Shakira, and Lana Del Rey, has said, "We've had one in each mastering room here for the entire time I've been here. I started using one when I was Bob's assistant. I fell in love with it then. It's always been my favorite EQ. Nothing quite sounds like it. It's just very musical." Other notable users include Michael Brower, known for his work with the Rolling Stone and Coldplay, and Ryan Hewitt, who's engineered for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Avett Brothers. Mastering engineer Tony Jack the Bear Montz has noted that the Massive Passive imparts a real attitude when you push it, yet still doesn't get out of control. As the manual itself acknowledges, any gear that you prefer to use on every sound is a sure sign you bought the right piece. The UAD Manley Massive Passive EQ plugin was released in March 2010 as part of UAD's software version 5.6.0. Universal Audio called it their most ambitious and detailed EQ model to date. Ivana Manley was initially cautious. She stated, "We didn't even want to entertain the idea of doing a plugin unless it was really going to be done right. Our expectations were high for the plugin emulation to be spot on. Working with Universal Audio, we believe they've totally nailed it." The plugin was the result of 6 months of tireless programming at Universal Audio's labs, and it was done at the component level. Passive filter circuitry, every resistor, capacitor, and the inductor interaction was modeled digitally. Manley provided UA with all of the actual components so engineers could measure and characterize them precisely. Audio transformers. The custom Manley wound output transformers were modeled, including their saturation characteristics. Tube gain stages. The 3-tube per channel path was carefully emulated, capturing distortion characteristics and headroom behavior. Inductor hysteresis. This is the technically challenging one. The hand-wound inductors exhibit hysteresis, a nonlinear magnetic behavior where the inductor's response depends on its previous state. This produces a mild broadband distortion that cannot be simulated with simple dynamic convolution. UA specifically modeled this. Band interdependencies, the complex parallel topology that was faithfully replicated, including the proportional Q behavior where bandwidth affects available gain. Pass-through coloration. Even when the EQ sections are disengaged, the plugin affects the sound, simulating the subtle coloration of running audio through the tubes and the transformers. Just like the hardware, the Sownd on Sound review put the plugin head-to-head against real hardware in a mastering studio with high-quality converters. On some settings, the reviewers sometimes could not tell them apart. In blind tests with colleagues, people sometimes pick the plugin as the better sounding version due to its slightly more forward mid-range. The reviewer concluded Universal Audio have yet again set a new standard for analog emulation. The tape op review was equally striking. The reviewer, who actually owns a hardware massive passive, tried to null the plugin against the hardware and achieved over 20 dB of cancellation. Then came the blind A/B test. The verdict: after doing the A/B comparison, I was sweating bullets trying to tell the two apart. The plugin is now available as UAD native, running on any Mac or PC without UA hardware, and as Apollo Real-Time for UA DSP acceleration. Both the standard EQ and the mastering EQ are included with one license. Full retail is $299, though it's frequently discounted and available through UA's Spark, which is UA's subscription service. Let me walk you through how I've set up today's session so you can follow along and understand exactly what we're listening to. Our demo song is Umbrella, a pop track. We'll be using the chorus section for all of our A and B comparisons. Here is the bus routing. Drums are a single stem going straight to the stereo out. Bass is also going straight to the stereo out. Keys and pads are grouped into a music bus, which feeds the stereo out. Lead vocals are grouped into a vocal bus, which also feeds the stereo out. This allows me to isolate individual buses as needed. On the mix bus chain, I have 4 stages in order. Corrective EQ, first for all surgical fixes, then a bus compressor for glue, then a Manley Massive Passive for character and polish, and finally a limiter for ceiling control. The Massive Passive sits after the bus compressor deliberately. We want the compressor to do its dynamic work on a clean signal, and then the Massive Passive adds its tunnel character to the compressed result. This way, the Massive EQ curves and tube coloration are the last flavor stage before limiting. I've also set up 4 visual analysis tools so you can see what's happening, not just hear it. FabFilter Pro Q4 for live spectral analysis and A/B toggling. Vossinger Span for before-after dual-channel spectrum overlays. Burton EQ Curve Analyzer to show the actual passive EQ transfer functions. Melder Production M Multi-Analyzer for harmonic distortion visualization. The tools will give you visual proof of what we're hearing. If you're getting some value from this video, please let me know by clicking the like button Also, subscribe to the channel if you wish to see more videos like this. Don't forget to click on the notification button so you'll be alerted each time I post a new video. I've got many more plugins to cover in the future, so you'll definitely want to see those. And before we dive into the demonstrations, I want to give you something. I've put together a comprehensive deep dive document on the Manley Massive Passive, along with a set of flashcards for quick reference and a quiz to test your understanding, all completely free. It's my way of saying thanks for spending time watching this video. Head over to the link in the description to collect these valuable freebies. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where in your chain do you put your mixed bus EQ? Before the compressor? After it? At the very end? Drop your approach below and let me know if today's video changes your thinking. So now that you have all the details of what the controls do, let's bring the plugin up on the screen and dive into an immersive demonstration. I'll play music through the Manley Massive Passive and show you exactly how these controls affect the audio signal in real time. Watch as I adjust the parameters. I'll focus on the specific values, explain what those numbers mean technically, and show you why they matter for mastering this tool. This hands-on approach will give you the technical understanding you need to truly control this plugin. Let's dive in and take a closer look. First, let's establish our baseline. Here's the chorus of Umbrella playing through the full mix bus chain. Corrective, EQ, bus compressor limiter, but with the massive passive bypassed.
You're my leftover umbrella.
Sounds good, right? Clean, balanced, everything's sitting where it should be, but listen for what's not there. The three-dimensional polish, that sense of the mix being finished. Now I'm going to show you something that, once you hear it, will change how you think about EQ forever. I've engaged the massive passive, but look at the controls. Every boost knob, 0. Every cut knob, 0. EQ section is completely flat.
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it storms. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Leftover umbrella. Still you cover me once more.
So if no EQ is being applied, what are we listening to?
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's
Did you hear that? We haven't moved a single EQ knob, not one. This is truly the tube gain staging and transformer coloration. The sound of your audio passing through 6 modeled vacuum tubes, the emulated hand-wound inductors, and those custom output transformers. Let me show you what's happening visually. Look at the M multi-analyzer. You can see harmonic content that wasn't there before. Subtle, even order harmonics from the tube stages. That's not EQ, that's the tubes and the transformer adding dimension to your audio just by passing through them. And on span, the before and after overlay shows a subtle but real spectral difference, a slight fullness in the low mids and gentle warmth across the entire spectrum. This is why engineers who own the hardware say the massive passive sounds good with everything flat. The character lives in the gain staging. This is why the plug-in models pass through coloration even when the EQ is disengaged. And this is why this EQ costs $7,000. It's not just an equalizer, it's a tone machine. Now let's add the EQ and hear what this thing was really designed to do. I'm going to set up a gentle mix bus polish, the kind of broad musical shaping that mastering engineers use the massive passive for every day. Low band, a gentle shelf boost around 100 Hertz, adding low end weight and fullness without mud. Mid-high band, a soft presence boost around 3 to 5K. It's bringing vocal detail and attack forward. High band, an air shelf around 10 to 12K, adding that expensive open top and shimmer. Remember, because of the parallel topology, these bands are interacting with each other in complex ways. The curves you see on the analyzer won't look like 3 independent boosts. They'll look like one cohesive musical shape.
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it's storms. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Let's go her umbrella. Still you cover me once more. You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy.
Now, that is the record-ready sound. The low end has weight without mud. The presence cuts without harshness. And that high shelf, listen to how open and airy the top end is without a trace of sibilance. That's the passive topology at work. Let me pull up Burton EQ Curve Analyzer so you can see the actual transfer function. The shape of what the massive passive is doing. Notice how these curves are broad and gentle. There are no sharp edges, no resonant peaks. That's the nature of passive equalization with hand-wound inductors. It's inherently smooth, and on span, the before and after overlay makes the difference unmistakable. Low end fullness, presence, lift, and air, all added without disturbing the balance of the mix. Let me toggle between bypass and engage so you can really lock in on the difference.
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it storms. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Let's go her umbrella. Still you cover me once more.
That's the polish. That's the expensive quality. The mix without the massive passive is perfectly fine. The mix with it sounds like it's ready for release. Now let's hear what the massive passive does on an individual element. I'll solo the drum stems. Clean, punchy, but a little thin and a little brittle on the cymbals and high frequency transients. Hear the difference. The kick has more body, the snare has more dimension and sustain, and the cymbals, they're smoother, more polished sounding. That's the passive EQ curves and the tube gain stage working together. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Can't I just do this with a regular EQ? Fair question. Let's find out. I'm going to use the FabFilter Pro Q4, which I want to be clear, is an absolutely incredible EQ and one of my favorite tools. And I'm going to try to match the Massive Passive's frequency curve on our mix bus. Using Pro Q4's analyzer, I can see approximately what the Massive Passive is doing to the spectrum, and I've recreated that shape. A low shelf around 100 hertz, a presence lift around 3 to 5 kilohertz, and an air shelf around 10 to 12 kilohertz.
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it's stormed. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Let's go her umbrella. Still you cover me once more.
Closer? Sure, but listen carefully.
You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it's stormed. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Let's go her umbrella. Still you cover me once more. You're my leftover umbrella. I only call you when it pours. Forget you when it's easy. Come running when it's stormed. Sorry I leave you in the corner. Just a stranger by the door. Let's go her umbrella. Still you cover me once more.
The Pro Q match is flatter, more clinical. It's hitting the same frequency targets, but the character is different. The Massive Passive has a three-dimensionality, a depth, a sense of space that the Pro Q match doesn't capture. And here's why. Pro Q4 is a minimal phase or linear phase digital EQ. It does exactly what you tell it to do perfectly. But the Massive Passive is a non-linear system. The bands interact through parallel topology. The inductors exhibit hysteresis. Their response depends on what the signal was doing a minute ago. The tubes add harmonics that shift with signal level. The transformers saturate dynamically. You're not just hearing an EQ curve, you're hearing a circuit, and that circuit behavior is something no static EQ curve can replicate. I also want to be transparent about something. Pro Q4 is an extraordinary analytical tool, but it has limitations when it comes to showing very subtle waveform differences. The nuances that make the Massive Passive sound the way it does, the micro-level harmonic interactions, the dynamic tube behavior, and the inductor hysteresis, these are real and audible, but they operate at a level of subtlety that modern analysis tools can struggle to fully visualize. Your ears will always be the final arbiter. That said, the difference between the Massive Passive and a matched Pro Q curve is not subtle to your ears. It's immediately apparent in how the mix feels. One sounds like an EQ, the other sounds like a record. So let's bring this all together. The Manley Massive Passive isn't just another EQ. It's a passive tube-driven tone machine designed by Hutchinson, one of the most decorated circuit designers in audio history, and born from Eve Anna's Manley's determination to build the definitive studio equalizer. The passive topology means no active components color the EQ curves, just resistors, capacitors, and hand-wound inductors creating broad musical shapes. The parallel band architecture means that the four bands interact in complex, non-linear ways that sound musical even when you push them hard. The tube gain staging adds harmonic dimension to your audio before you even touch an EQ knob. And the universal audio plugin captures all of this down to the inductor hysteresis and the pass-through coloration so faithfully that the hardware owners can't reliably tell the difference in blind tests. If your mixes sound good but not finished, this might be the missing piece. Not because it's expensive, Because the engineering behind it creates something that stock digital EQs fundamentally cannot replicate. And speaking of plugins that actually replace hardware, next up on the channel, we're diving into one of the most iconic delay effects ever made. Tape echo versus digital delay. The modulation makes the magic. Featuring the Galaxy Tape Echo. If you've ever wondered why tape echo sounds so much more alive than a clean digital delay, that video is going to blow your mind. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you want to go even deeper on the massive passive and plugins like it, keep coming back to the channel. We've got a lot more to cover and we're just getting started. Don't forget to grab the free massive passive deep dive, flashcards, and the quiz. Link is in the description. Until then, keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.